Morning, Steve, Julia.
Morning, Jim. Jim, I heard you, your sound worked. Thurman, you want to test yours quick just to make sure it works?
Yes, does it work?
Yep, good shape. All right. Give us just another couple minutes here to make sure the link is posted online, and then we'll get started here. Hopefully right at 7:30 here.
We got everybody, Eric?
Yep, we got everybody. So, hey, just a reminder to everybody, when it's your turn to talk, just to make sure you unmute yourself, like we did last month. And then board, once we're ready for executive session at the end, then we'll just stay in, and then we'll go to a separate link then after that. So, Steve, I think we're ready to go.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. We are calling the meeting to order at 7:30. Amanda, if you'd want to do roll call, please.
Mr. Gertz,
Here.
Mrs. Klink,
Here.
Mr. Kyle Miller,
Here.
Mr. Mullet,
Here.
Mr. Steve Miller.
Here. Okay, a reminder that we are operating under a consent agenda. Acknowledgements of guests is a little difficult. Do we have any that we know of to acknowledge, Eric?
No, we don't.
Okay.
We'll recognize a couple people here in just a little bit.
Okay. Okay, then number 3 is approval of minutes, which is Appendix A, whichever has a copy. Has any comments, or would want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
I'll second.
April 21st meeting.
All right, I think our board
First,
president,
Kyle, did you second that?
Steve, I think you're frozen here just a little bit.
To be frozen.
1 second for some technical difficulties here. Let's see if that comes unstuck. Not great.
Well, Julia, you can just take over.
That is definitely plan B here, Julie, if his internet doesn't work out here. So let's give it a second here to see if it comes back.
Okay, am I back or not?
Yes. Yep. I think that's better, Steve.
Sorry about that.
No problem. I think we did have a motion and a second, but I can't remember who it was. Mandy, do you have that?
Well, I heard both Kyle and Julia seconding it, so I wrote Kyle down first.
Okay. My apologies there. So we have who first? I think Jim made a motion and Kyle seconded. So Amanda, go ahead with roll call.
Mr. Gertz,
Yes.
Mr. Kyle Miller,
Yes.
Mrs. Klink,
Yes.
Mr. Mullet,
Yes.
Mr. Steve Miller,
Yes. Okay, number 4 is the approval of today's agenda. Anyone would like to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, Thurman first, Julia second. Go ahead with roll call, Amanda.
Mr. Mullet,
Yes.
Mrs. Klink,
Yes.
Mr. Gertz,
Yes.
Mr. Kyle Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Steve Miller.
Yes. Okay, Eric, go ahead with superintendent's report.
All right. For our superintendent's report, we have a few things here this morning. Our last WKLM Students of the Week here for the month finishing up April and then May here. So congratulations to these Highland students. Gabriel Miller, Courtney Schrock, Anthony Miller, Grant Miller, and Kira Yoder. So congratulations to those 5 Highland students and a job well done. Second, just a follow-up from communication that has been sent out over the last week or so about Highland graduation. We have postponed our original date here that should be this coming Sunday originally, and have it scheduled for Sunday, June 28 at 2 o'clock. So we're still making plans for that, and we'll continue to stay in touch with everybody as we get closer to that date there. And then you can see our alternate date there in July, should we not be able to hold it on June 28. Next is an exciting part of our agenda here this morning. For the second year in a row here at East Holmes, we are recognizing a Teacher of the Year and a Classified Staff Member of the Year. And we're excited. We have a couple people joining us here this morning. And even under the circumstances of not being able to meet in person and a lot of those different things, the committee still met. And so I asked Daryl Haven help lead that committee. So he's going to just explain the process a little bit. And then Mr. Blocklinger will introduce our Teacher of the Year, Michelle Sauenheimer. And then CJ Sprang will introduce our Classified Staff Member of the Year, Bill Blizzard. So Mr. Haven.
Yeah, thank you very much and good morning, everyone. We have a district full of great skilled teachers and staff who are humble, and this is a process not necessarily for them, it's a process for us, which is the staff, to encourage and to acknowledge those who go above and beyond. So I'm just going to be brief about how the committee set up. I'll tell you who's on the committee. It was Sarah Hirschberger, Jan Isaac, JT Lunenberg, Marcia Swigert, and myself. And the process started clear back in March, where teachers had the opportunity to nominate either staff or teachers from the district. We took those nominations and they went to the building principals probably about the first couple weeks of April. And from there, the building principals narrowed it down to the top nominations from their building. And then this is where it came to the committee. And the committee, we met a few times all through April. Every Thursday in April we met. And we had a process where we talked about each possible nominee. And then also the voting process, each of us had 20 votes for both staff and both teacher, and divvied up those votes. And by May 7th, we had a final winner for both teacher and staff. And then May 8th, we went ahead and communicated that to the administrator. So I am now going to turn that over to CJ and Darren.
All right. Hopefully you can see Mrs. Sauerheimer back over my right shoulder, but I'm very excited to share some thoughts about her from the teachers, her colleagues and peers, and then I put together just a few character traits or phrases that I thought best described her. So Michelle is a perfect example of what a teacher at East Holmes should strive to be. She is caring and very realistic in her expectations. She challenges all students to do their best all the time. Michelle is easy to approach with concerns, and she listens very carefully to what you're saying. I trust Michelle with anything. Michelle is a dynamic and driven educator. She teaches her students at a very high level and believes that they can all achieve. She is continuing her education and using that knowledge to even better. I am always impressed with her input at meetings. And then just some things, those were from staff. I thought those were beautifully said. That's what I wanted to include those. And then I put together some character phrases that I think describe her perfectly. The first one is a willingness to put in the time necessary to perfect her craft. A love for the age that she teaches. She's a 5th and 6th grade language arts teacher, and her personality meshes well with that age of student. She has an effective classroom management style. Even though we have a a building-wide program, her classes are always on task and engaged because of her obvious love for students and the content that she teaches. She has a positive relationship with the adults in the building and the district. She's a leader, not because she's asked to be, but because she chooses to engage all staff members in a positive and affirming light. She has a consistency to excellence. Mrs. Sauerheimer is never satisfied. She believes she can do better and that her students have the capacity to do better as well. She is an expert in the use of instructional methods. Her classroom instruction is never the same. You can find her playing music, teaching a rap, moving to the beat, dressing up in silly costumes, etc. Whatever it takes to keep the students engaged and excited. Her in-depth content knowledge, she knows language arts and is willing to prepare so that her knowledge is passed on to her students. And then capacity for growth. She understands that learning is a lifelong endeavor, and she continues to learn about language arts, reading, as she strives to achieve a doctorate. And then steadiness of purpose and teaching personality. Spend time in her classroom, and you will understand why she was selected by her peers as East Holmes Teacher of the Year. So congratulations, Michelle. If I could, I would hug you, but I'm not allowed to. You truly are deserving of this award.
Congratulations, Michelle. So well deserved, and excellent representation of our teachers here at East Holmes. So congratulations, Michelle.
I would like to echo that. I think on behalf of the board, congratulations. Those were some beautiful words, especially from your peers. The only thing I thought as you were reading that off, Darren, is I thought maybe the costume and dancing thing could have been, a little display this morning so we could see how she keeps them entertained.
You'll be surprised.
Congratulations, Michelle.
If I'd asked her to do that, she would have done that. She's good.
Thank you. CJ?
All right. Yes. Congratulations, Michelle. Well deserved, and just appreciate all you do for our kids. Today, I'm here to recognize the classified staff member of the year. I got him sitting here. It's Mr. Bill Blizzard. Mr. Blizzard was nominated by a fellow coworker here at Highland for a number of reasons. And I just want to share a little bit about Bill and recognize him for all of his efforts. With Bill, if you know Bill, the first thing you're going to think about him is he's a fun-loving guy. He's always up for a good joke. He's always up for a good story. And he's always up just to listen. I think Bill is truly a people person and somebody who seeks out others just to make their day a little bit brighter, or to listen to them and help them in any way that he can. Bill also is always willing to do whatever is needed in terms of his role here in the building. He and his son Bo, they or the evening shift for the building, and there are many times where he will handle things when nobody else is around. Whether it be cleaning up maybe some pencil art in the restroom, or it be making sure that the doors were open for the next team to come in. It'll be something like catching a door that stayed open at the recenter at 10 o'clock at night. Those are just a few of the things that he does that I think really go unnoticed, but help make our school such a great place. In addition, he's a person that pays close attention to detail, and in our current environment, with cleanliness so important, Bill, Bo, and Wes included, they have done such a great job of just making sure all of our surfaces are clean, making sure that if people are in the building, that they at least go to their room, they spray them down, and they make sure that things don't spread. I think that that's true in our current environment, but I also know that that's true no matter what. For instance, every summer, Bill re-waxes all the floors, and Bill takes great pride in making sure that the floors are shiny. And if you've been in the building in the beginning of August, you know that you can see yourself in the floor. And I think that's Bill Blizzard. If you need to know anything else about Bill, that's what you need to know about him. Just another final thought: he's always creative in finding solutions to problems. Can come up with different ideas, different recommendations, and always kind of comes with a solution. Doesn't come with a problem and then kind of look at us like, well, what are we going to do? It's always, hey, here's the problem. Here's what I'm thinking. What do you think? And that just kind of highlights his ability to be a team player and to demonstrate leadership here in the building and in the district. So again, Bill is a fantastic guy, very deserving of this award. And I would like to just congratulate him for all of his efforts, and appreciate the work of Daryl and the team in putting together this great recognition for both Bill and Michelle. So thank you.
Very good. Congratulations, Bill. Very well deserved as well. Like Michelle, your attention to detail and dedication at Highland, keeps a 50-plus-year-old building looking new. And so we appreciate the extra efforts and extra eye to detail that you do in your job, and how you relate to others. So thank you for that.
Congratulations, Bill. Well deserved.
All right, very good. And we'll, as we shoot for August, we are hopeful that we'll be back together as a whole staff at the beginning of the year, and plan to recognize both Michelle and Bill in front of everybody again back when we return in August. So we'll look forward to that day. All right, we'll keep moving on here to number 4 for our building and supervisor reports. And then there is a number 5 that was just missed on the report here, where Amanda will give just an update to the 5-year forecast once all the principals are done giving their updates here. So we'll kind of just go around the room here, and I'll start at the top of my screen. And Mr. Wilson, you're up.
Good morning, everyone. So a few things that are going on here during this time. Summer school remote learning is being set up. So kids grades K through 6 will each receive a summer packet of sorts. These were not to be worksheet based. They were to be more activity oriented, just some fun things that the kids can do through the summer that will kind of help get them back into the groove for next year. As we're looking into federal funds, Mandy and I are working to finalize the fiscal year 20 funds to make sure that those are spent down and ready to go. The new federal funding application is in the process of being filled out. That process is open through June. And it's involved a lot of questions this year, and each building actually has received a core battery of questions as well. So it definitely has a different look and a different feel to that piece. As we progress forward, just continuing to try to monitor some funding predictions when it comes to federal monies. I do anticipate some sort of a cut there, but there have been no numbers laid out at this point. And we're also currently collecting free and reduced lunch information through our ODE approved form. If you recall, that is a yearly thing that we send out to our families that helps our buildings to qualify to receive the federal funds. Textbooks for next year are starting to arrive by the pile. So we're working on getting those processed and sent out. And we also have the annual district parent survey that we're wrapping up the results on that as well. We get some good feedback from that as far as planning and maybe just heading off some scuffles before they become too large. So that is a valuable tool for us.
Thank you, John. JT, you're up.
Good morning, everybody. It's good to see. Congratulations to Michelle and Bill. Well deserved. Just some things going on at both Mountain Hope and Chestnut Ridge. One of the things, we want our kids here at school, but we don't have them here. So we are taking advantage of the empty buildings and having the custodians do some extra work that maybe wouldn't be able to get to during a normal summer length. And some of that has to do with painting. If you're at both buildings, our main hallways have been repainted, kind of updated, a lot brighter and nicer looking. And they've done a nice job with that. Our last student packs, of course, went home this last week to finish out the school year. And our teachers have continued to communicate with their families. And it's kind of interesting, you know, the first time when they started doing some of these things, they were kind of just making calls. But now the more I talk to teachers, more and more of them are making actual home visits, you know, keeping 6 feet away, but talking to the kids. And that way, I've had some teachers that are actually calling students on the phone and reading with students over the phone. And parents have communicated with me that when they do call for help on homework, they are getting calls back and those communications are taking place. So I do want to thank the teachers for putting in those efforts during a time that's kind of unusual for us and trying to learn our way through and how to best serve our Amish students. Number 4, we did have advisory board meetings at both buildings this past week. I appreciate Eric making those as well. During those meetings, just kind of asking our advisory board members how we've done, what do they think about this quarter and how it's gone for them, and then start thinking about possible fall situations and trying to just kind of pick their brains a little bit on ideas for next year if we find ourselves in any of various situations starting out the school year, so we can best serve our students there and just kind of trying to be proactive, thinking ahead a little bit. And then finally, or 2 things here, work's begun on next year's schedule. I'm kind of working on those as if we're back in a normal way, and it can be adjusted if we're not, but getting those things together. And then we had a good teacher appreciation lunch here at Chestnut Ridge. We provided wraps and chips and cookies for all our teachers. And we kind of did it in a drive-through fashion through the Chestnut Ridge driveway. And they just kind of came up through and stayed in their cars, and we provided those lunches for the teachers. So really appreciate what they're doing. And hopefully next fall, we'll see everybody together in the same place. Thanks.
Thanks, JT. CJ and Scott.
All right, good morning again. At Highland, we have a lot of activity going on right now, and it's fantastic and exciting. To start, the turf field, the excavation of the topsoil started yesterday. Would like to thank Bud and Melinda Rainber of Freiberg Excavating for starting that process. It's going quick already. Today they are down there. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to do much with the rain, but they are at least down there taking a look at it. As well, Bill and Wes and Bo have repainted a portion of the old gym here at Highland, kind of cleaned it up, made it a little bit brighter. It looks fantastic. I think it's just going to help with the lighting, and we'll have a much cleaner feel to it. Also yesterday, we started excavation or work on the restrooms, the main restrooms here at Highland. There was a crew in that took down a lot of the block wall, started to rip out the urinals and toilets, and are looking forward to have that whole environment upgraded. Kind of what's been happening this week as well. Mr. Boyd, Mr. Pringle, and myself are wrapping up scheduling with high school students for next year. So we're still meeting with students one-on-one to review graduation plans as well as their schedule to make sure they're on track. And then finally, this Friday is our seniors' official last day. Yesterday, we communicated out a pickup and drop-off plan that's organized by student last name and gives them times to come to the building here, drop off their Chromebook, drop off their textbooks, make sure all their fees are paid up, and kind of do those final tasks before graduation. And then we will have an opportunity for students in grades 7 through 11 to come to the building on May 28th and 29th with a similar type of format. So a lot of things happening here at the building. I know Mr. Pringle wants to share a little bit more about what students are doing.
It looks like you're unmuted, Scott. Well, while you're troubleshooting that a little bit, Scott, why don't we go to Mr. Travis, and then if you get that figured out, we'll circle back to you.
All right. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to repeat some of the same things that some others said too, but student supplies and packets the last 2 Fridays have been distributed. I wanted to thank John Whitmer. We used a bus and had a stop at Wise. Then we made a stop at the Charm parking lot. They're right in downtown Charm. And then we went to Flat Ridge. So both times that stop in Charm was really popular for people to stop in there. So I want to thank John for driving the bus. We also had an advisory board meeting on May 6th. Good discussion with our 6 members of the board. I want to thank Mr. Bune for attending that as well. Good meeting. We did a teacher and staff appreciation last Wednesday evening, had a beautiful night for some wood-fired pizzas from Amish Country Pizza, which is Charm Sweet Shop. He brought his trailer out and we did a similar thing with a drive-through. Had teachers stop in their cars and we served them right in their cars. Some stayed and ate in their car and some took it home and just had a fun time doing that. The old restrooms Friday and yesterday have been gutted. The old restrooms now near the cafeteria at Flat Ridge and the restrooms right near the 5th and 6th grade room at Wise. And boy, they were in and out and had things gutted pretty quickly. And I think the next step is waiting on the plumbers to come. So excited to see when they get started. And last thing for me is we are planning a graduation ceremony for 8th graders and their families for June 23rd, depending on the guidelines at that time. Planning on doing like a pizza buffet and some ice cream and cookies. So hopefully we can do that, whether it's 8th graders and just their parents or 8th graders and immediate family, and we'll decide as we get closer to that date as well. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Travis. Mr. Pringle, should we try one more time?
Yeah, does it work this time? They were working on my laptop yesterday. So again, good morning, everybody. I want to talk about some of the great events that we are getting ready for or already have done here at the end of the year. We have had to present those in a new and innovative way this year than normal. We had our annual honors banquet. It was aired on Saturday, and that is still available on the district YouTube channel. The music banquet was recorded yesterday and will air tonight at 7 p.m. We have our Highland Awards Assembly. We're going to record that soon, and we want to air that soon. With all of these banquets and assemblies, we would like to thank Nick Brown for allowing us to borrow a studio camera, a software called Sling Studio that allows us to record it and edit this information. And then we can also plug in our sound system into this studio. And then we can then take the video and edit it and make it into the version, if you were unable to see the honors banquet Saturday, into the version that you see online with the YouTube channel. So again, thanks to them for allowing us to use all that software. On the student learning front, we continue with remote learning using Google Meet and Google Classroom. And we will continue this until the dates that CJ mentioned earlier, when we have student pickup and drop off. So really appreciate the efforts of our teachers, with remote learning since we've had to not be here. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Scott. Mr. Haven.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. As is our tradition, I'm going to share 3 things about Walnut Creek and Winesburg, and they all start with the letter L. Number 1, learning packets. I want to throw a shout out to teachers for not just providing great material, but being creative in how they present the material to the kids. And we know that the communication's going on throughout the weeks with our students through all kinds of different platforms. Our students who are diligent and accountable to getting their work done, and then also our parents who are right there side by side. We had Teacher Appreciation Week a couple weeks ago, and part of me wanted to celebrate with the parents too, because we know they have taken on that role. The second L is the Leader in Me. Our Lighthouse teams, both Winesburg and Walnut Creek, are going to be Leader in Me schools. And right now we are at the initial stage of developing Lighthouse teams. They're not etched in stone who's on the teams, but we're working through that right now, making those commitments. Basically, learning the 7 highly effective habits is number 1. And then the expectation is for us to live those habits. And then we got to live them before we share them to our students. And then the third L is loyalty. Loyalty could be best defined as looking out for people who look out for you. And I feel like the relationship between our teachers, our staff, and our parents has always been high. Never thought it could go higher, but it's even higher now. Just watching them work side by side with our students in a remote learning atmosphere. The challenge is when we go back to a new normal, how are we going to continue that strong relationship? So there it is from Walnut Creek and Winesburg. Thank you.
Thanks, Daryl. And Darren.
Okay, good morning again, everybody. Just to continue on with some of the things that were said, staff appreciation. Our parking lot is conducive to parking in a huge circle. And then I wanted to solicit a local business. So we had Boyd and Worthman cater food over. So just to appreciate the staff and all that they've done. And then I've been in discussion with lots of parents about, we've tried to do reading discovery in person, but how it would look remotely. And we picked 3 kids and have been doing those lessons 4 to 5 days a week, and the parents are really happy and it's been working well. So I want to thank Lexi Beatty, Shannon Olson, and Andrea Gingrich for their willingness to try that, and the kids and the parents, because it's when you're not right next to them, it's a little tougher, but they've said it's worked well. And then as guidelines have started to move back a little bit, we've started to meet face-to-face, so to speak, here at school with small groups of staff, planning for next year. So we spread out in the cafeteria. We have to shout, but we get things done, and it's nice to meet face-to-face. And then our new custodians, Jason and James Whitman, came in ready to go, and then this all struck. So it's to be new at a time that nobody's have lived through before has been difficult, but I want to thank them for stepping up and doing lots of great things. And so those two guys were a great addition. They had big shoes to fill, but they're doing a great job doing that. And then just again to appreciate the staff for their creativity for teaching kids in this new environment. So I really appreciate that. Thanks.
All right, and Carrie to finish us up.
Good morning, everybody. In the world of special education, we have continued working through all of the IEPs and the ETRs for the district. And I think I've mentioned in a prior month that we are transitioning our progress book special services. That is our documentation methods. That is being transitioned to a new format as of today. So we had to get the whole district all finished up with all of our meetings, all of our documentation, and hopefully everyone is staying out of the system today and tomorrow for us as we transition to newer applications that should be more user-friendly for our staff members. So that's been our really big project. A lot of work from all the intervention specialists and related service people to make that happen. And I really appreciate the staff in participating and doing their best to get through all of this. Yeah, I know our intervention specialists have been working hard to reach out to their students and provide specially designed instruction the best they can. They've been collaborating with teachers, and this remote learning is definitely an opportunity for creativity. And I know that that has happened with everybody. Everyone has been very resourceful and utilized whatever strategies and opportunities they could. And sort of along the lines that Mr. Haven shared, our parents have also really stepped up and they have been creative as well. And we've just had increased participation, I would say, from the parents to meet some of the needs of the specially designed services, as well as having parents who might not have had methods of communicating with us in the past, finding ways to communicate with us, you know, getting a phone or whatever they could so they could keep in touch with teachers. So I appreciate our families, our staff, and I look forward to this change with our new special services program for our documentation.
All right, thank you, Carrie. Thanks, everybody. And we'll finish up now with Mandy is just going to give a presentation here on the update to the 5-year forecast.
All right, thanks, Eric. We initially had thought we weren't going to do a formal presentation, but just with all the changes we're seeing, we thought maybe it would be good to just discuss some of those key points for the board, for our staff, and for the community. So I'm going to try and share my screen here. And hopefully, you guys, can you all see the presentation? All right, very good. So just as a quick introduction and reminder, the forecast is for general fund money only. Typically, the May forecast is used for just an update to the November forecast. When you throw in a pandemic, that changes things slightly. So we're going to look at a couple of those things in just a minute. After I present in the treasurer's report, you will be asked as a board to approve this so we can submit to ODE. Like everything we're dealing with right now, this is subject to change daily. So as soon as we release this information, more than likely it's going to be outdated. So just know that as Eric and I work together, as our staff works through this, any updates that come our way will be communicated as they become available. A few submission highlights from November that definitely will be impacted here in May. We discussed our real estate tax collections and what those could look like with the triennial update. We touched on the biennium budget that was set for fiscal year 20 and 21. And we also looked at interest earnings as we were projecting those to be a lot higher. So I will be touching on those in just a minute. So luckily for us, Holmes County just went through a triennial update, and historically, the past couple of years, we have seen real estate values just continue to climb. With that update in the fall, we did see a 15% increase in assessed property values, which ultimately led to an 11% increase in real estate tax collections from last fiscal year. Our fiscal year 21 estimate is based off of a conversation and meeting with the county auditor, and she provides estimates by levy. So we're using those estimates as we feel she is the expert in the area, and that those are pretty sound numbers. In speaking with her, she says that transfers have remained strong during the pandemic. Sales have continued to be higher than her auditor values in most cases. So she is not very concerned in terms of real estate tax collections. Her and the treasurer have no plan to delay any tax collections for the second half of the year. In Holmes County, historically, people pay their tax bill in the first half of the year. So we've already seen a majority of our real estate tax revenue for this tax year. As you can see, we've projected modest growth then throughout the forecast period. We will see a reappraisal in fiscal year 22, where we could see some of those updated values from the triennial update adjusted. State foundation, this is a big item. I think everyone in the state knows that funding is going to be an issue. So like I mentioned, the biennium budget, House Bill 166, set foundation funding flat at our fiscal year 19 levels for fiscal year 20 and 21. It has since been released that there is going to be a large cut for fiscal year 20 and likely a larger cut for fiscal year 21. So our fiscal year 20 cut just took place a couple weeks ago now, and that was actually a 10% reduction in state foundation aid for East Holmes. That was $433,000. And that, again, that is just for the remainder of fiscal year 20, which is May and June. Advocacy groups across the state for fiscal year 21 are projecting up to a 3 times the cut, 3 times the fiscal year 20 cut that we could see in fiscal year 21, which would be $1.3 million for us. This is all based on budget projections, budget deficit projections at the state level, which obviously would then trickle down to the local level. So because of that, you will see a 3% or a 3 times the cut reduction in fiscal year 21. I pulled that out as a separate line item on this slide so we can see how that's directly impacting that state foundation line. We are hopeful that with a new biennium budget in the summer of 21, that we will see foundation funding increase to at least those post-cut levels, which would take us to about 3.7 million. So we are going to forecast 3.7 million flat for 22, 23, and 24. Again, this is speculation based off of what we know today, and a lot will just depend on any of those legislative changes. We are at the mercy of the state when it comes to state funding. Also in this line item, casino revenue comes into play. Casinos have been closed since March 14th, with projections to be closed through August or up to August, which could be 40% of the year. So because of a possible closure of 40% of the year, we have reduced next year's casino revenues by 40%, and then we will increase those gradually over the forecast period to get those numbers close to the fiscal year 20 numbers. So state funding is going to heavily impact us here. And again, as we navigate this, we will continue to share those updates with you. Another part of state funding are poverty-based assistance and our career tech funds. There hasn't been a whole lot of discussion surrounding career tech, so we are keeping those flat. Our poverty-based assistance, we envision being strongly impacted by our economy and just unemployment numbers. So in the past, where we've seen this actually declining here, we're going to keep this flat until we get more information to know what this could look like for us. All other revenues, there are a number of items that feed in here. The three main ones I just want to draw your attention to. Open enrollment, interest, and Chromebook repair fees. Open enrollment has increased 9% over the last 3 fiscal years. We are beginning to limit the number of students that we accept into open enrollment just so we can maintain staffing levels, especially during this uncertain time. We can't go adding staff to serve kids outside of the district. Interest, we did see continued growth as we suspected over the fiscal year. Originally, we projected $175,000 in interest earnings for this fiscal year. We are already at $260,000, and after speaking with Meter Portfolio, who manages our portfolio, they're estimating by the end of the fiscal year we will have $281,000 in interest earnings. However, we are very fortunate to have been able to capture some of those interest rates. The Fed has now cut interest rates 3 times, I believe, this year, and we will see a large decrease next fiscal year in interest revenue, estimating around $160,000. So obviously a big cut for us there. Hopefully, as the economy recovers, we will see those interest rates start to climb slowly, but it will be a long process before we start seeing interest revenue like we did this year. Chromebook repair fees, something I just want to draw your attention to, as we've obviously gone to a remote learning environment, not knowing what our environment will look like next year. I think this is something we just need to keep our eye on. As kids are using the Chromebooks more and more, we might see this increase as well. Last quick item on revenues, all other financing sources. This is where I want to remind you about fiscal year 20. We see that negative $406,000, largely in part to moving the charm revenues out of the general fund into the permanent improvement fund. Refund of prior year expenditures, you can see that was a large line item this year. And we did receive, as many of you heard, that the Bureau of Workers' Comp was going to be issuing dividends checks. We did receive our check, and so that was where this was posted as well. So this negative number that was originally projected to be a lot higher in the fall has actually been offset by some of these refund of prior year's expenditures. So not as big of a loss there as we were originally projecting. So expenditures, more of the items that are in our control as terms of a district and what we can do to manage this difficult time. Just real quick update to wages. It's slightly lower than our fall estimate, and this is largely in part to not really having to worry about any substitutes for 9 weeks. This definitely helped in terms of a wage number. Next fiscal year, we do see a 2% increase across the board as a part of the negotiated agreement. And so next year's estimate, that is looking at estimated keeping current staffing levels at their current, or with that 2% increase, supplemental contracts, estimated substitute wages, overtime wages, and any vacation payout that will happen going into next fiscal year. Over the forecast period, hard to determine what wages will be. Modestly a 3% increase as we look at people moving across educational columns and then those step increases. Retirement and insurance, we did see a reduction in retirement in the fall. This is mainly due to retirements that took place throughout the year. And insurance, I did want to touch on, we did just, and I believe it's later in the board meeting, we'll be approving the all care renewal. Our monthly premiums will not change, which is good news for us. The employer and employee contribution rates will shift to 88% and 12%. Our other benefits line that we will be monitoring as well, just similar to the Chromebooks because of the current environment, the unemployment numbers we will be monitoring. We do have some unemployment claims that we're working through with Sedgwick, who is our unemployment provider. Just as we navigate this, we may be liable for some unemployment wages. Purchase services continues to just be a growing line item. This is where we contract all of our services, any outgoing student costs and utility costs. Overall, there was an increase from the fall estimate, and we did see a larger increase than anticipated in repairs, largely at the bus garage as we deal with our aging fleet, and then some extra repairs at Highland. We could see some adjustments to these final estimates as we receive final invoices as the fiscal year comes to a close. Supplies and materials has ended up lower than our fall estimate, again, largely in part to not being in the classroom and teachers not being able to utilize different supplies as much as they typically would. This is a large area that we can control. It's not going to make a big impact on our bottom line, but it is something that we can manage to try and offset some of that funding loss from the state. So because of that, we've decided to set our supply spending at fiscal year 20 final expenditures for the forecast period. Fiscal year 21, you do see a different number there, and that's due to a new K-5 curriculum that was planned. That was on the fall update as well. We're still likely to go forward with that. Should we be in a different learning environment, that may be something we explore to postpone a little bit, but more to come on that. Any supply ordering for next fiscal year is currently on hold as we just wait to learn more. We are all hopeful that we will be back in the classrooms and don't really envision any type of issue with delaying that ordering right now. Capital outlay was higher than our fall estimate as we just navigate our increasing technology needs. And when you have to educate kids remotely, you have to buy some things. So we did see an increase there. And again, as we navigate this new environment, we're likely to see some increasing costs here because of those technology needs. We are working closely with the East Central Ohio ESC to plan those different technology types of expenditures, and those are reflected in the forecast. Fiscal year 21, you see an increase here because of a school bus purchase that was planned to come out of the general fund, as well as we will see a school bus purchase coming from PI as well. This last line item here, other objects, this is just to capture all of our different miscellaneous fees we find from the treasurer, from the auditor, and those are just reflected here. Last big item to discuss before we're looking at our revenues and expenses combined here, transfers out. So at the beginning of the fiscal year, we transferred $10,000 to the food service fund to offset a negative balance. Funds cannot start a fiscal year in a negative. So the general fund is used to supplement that. So all of our other funds we have are dependent on the general fund. So when we think about the general fund, yes, it's separate, but yet it still is used to help those other funds when they get into the red. So based on school being closed and very little cafeteria revenue coming in, based on having to still pay our cafeteria staff salary and benefits, we are projecting being in the red there quite a bit going into next fiscal year. So we're planning to transfer $90,000 to the food service fund to offset those losses, since we will not see any revenue over the summer. So with that, and looking at our receipts over our revenue, which is line 6.0, like I said, obviously we are going to be heavily impacted by the state. And at this point, it's speculation based on the information we have available today. We are likely to see deficit spending occur next fiscal year. And then just depending on what the state does, we could see it further on in the forecast too. As always, as we get into those further years out in the forecast, it's not really a whole lot of information to be basing big decisions on, especially that holds true today with our current situation. We've been fortunate to see our rainy day fund grow over the past fiscal years, and we're very fortunate to have that rainy day fund because I'm pretty certain we will tap into that next year. And so that's why it's there, is to be able to offset should we see situations like this arise. So to wrap up essentially here, if I haven't said it, this is all enough. This is all open to speculation and just the uncertainty surrounding state funding. is going to impact us heavily. And as John had mentioned, we are likely to see a cut in federal funding. So if we see a cut in federal funding, again, those are probably going to be costs that the general fund will have to pick up. We haven't heard anything about student wellness and success dollars. Our best guess is that we will definitely see a cut in some of those next year as well. So again, as the information becomes available, we will pass it along to you and keep you informed. We are going to receive some CARES Act money. That is not going to be something we see year after year. That's going to be a one-time shot for us to help offset some of these immediate losses we're seeing. But it will help us in the short term, but long term, we have to be putting measures into place as Eric and I have been working to do, and the admin team to set us up to ride this thing out for the long haul. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen and let Eric chime in on anything he may want to.
All right, thanks, Mandy. I think everybody knows, just with just a lot of continue to be uncertainty and effects financially, that will affect how we operate day to day. So that some of those things are going to drive some decisions. And over the last couple of weeks, as we've learned those things and have had to react, we instituted a hiring freeze, and anytime someone is leaving, we're really looking hard at how we can replace people from within. It looks like we will reduce by about 4 or 5 staff members heading into next year, and we'll continue to evaluate those things. So some of those things will continue to mean potentially larger class sizes in some areas and less support for students and teachers, while also trying to make best decisions we can to put people in the right places to give people opportunity and students for success. So appreciate everybody's support there as we continue to move forward. So, all right, Steve, I think we're ready to keep moving.
Thank you, Amanda and Eric. So Amanda, go ahead with the treasurer's report.
All righty, you will see in there the April financials in there for your approval. You also see one then and now certificate to EJ Therapy. There was a PO in place for this. There just wasn't enough left on the PO. So normal practice is to close the PO out and open a new one to have the full amount on the new PO. I am asking for your approval on that forecast I just presented. And then, like I mentioned, we did meet with AltCare, and our renewal is in place to begin July 1st with new premium splits. Again, the total monthly premium is not changing, and that's based on how our self-insurance fund has been doing. So that's a good, I guess that just speaks to how everyone's handling their insurance at this time. So the premium split is shifting to 88% and 12%.
Okay, does anybody have questions or discussion on 1 through 4 under treasurer's report? If not, would someone make a motion to approve them?
So moved. I'll second.
Kyle, was that you that made the motion?
Yes, that was.
Okay, so Kyle made the motion, Jim seconded. Amanda, go ahead with roll call.
Mr. Kyle Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Gertz,
Yes.
Mrs. Klink,
Yes.
Mr. Mullet,
Yes.
Mr. Steve Miller.
Yes. Okay, Eric, go ahead with new business.
All right, on new business, I'd ask that you take 1 through 5 together there. Highlight number 1 there are 74 graduates for approval at Highland. Looking forward to June 28 where we can see everybody graduate. Number 2 is our 5-year network connectivity agreement with TCCSA, both for our internet and also wireless internet agreement there. from our previous 5-year agreement, there is a slight decrease in that cost there. Number 3 is an MOU with the Teachers Association modifying the student growth measure portion based on the current environment so that we can finish evaluations for the school year. Number 4 is an agreement with the Booster Club, Athletic Booster Club, for the artificial turf project at Highland. And then number 5 is approval of fees for the 2021 school year. The only change in that list is our lunch fees there for elementary and middle school, high school, increasing 10 cents for next school year. That's it.
Okay. Any questions or discussion on 1 through 5 under new business? Not, someone want to make a motion?
Be glad to make that motion.
So moved.
Okay, Jim made the motion. Julie, was that you, I believe? Are you seconding? Okay. So Julia seconded it. Go ahead, Amanda.
Mr. Gertz,
Yes.
Mrs. Klink,
Yes.
Mr. Kyle Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Mullet,
Yes.
Mr. Steve Miller.
Yes. Before we move on to the next one, I on behalf of the board, I would like to congratulate all of the seniors of 2020. You know, with the governor shutting the schools down, it's certainly been a challenging last 9 weeks, but from my observation, they've held their heads high and have adjusted well. And I'm proud of them. So congratulations to all of them.
Absolutely. All right, thanks, Steve.
Okay. Number 8, go ahead.
Yep, on personnel there, taking 1 through 6, 3 resignations there, and then list of contract renewals for all current employees on 3 and 4. And then number 5, both Corey Haswell and Jennifer Mangle are current staff members and being placed in new positions there. And then number 6, Alexander Strauss is a tutor at Highland who was a tutor this current school year as well.
Okay, questions or discussion on 1 through 6 under personnel? Okay, someone want to make a motion to approve that?
So move.
Thurman
Second.
and Kyle seconded. Go ahead, Amanda.
Mr. Mullet,
Yes.
Mr. Kyle Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Gertz,
Yes.
Mrs. Klink,
Yes.
Mr. Steve Miller.
Yes.
I recommend that the Board of Education go into executive session for any of the following matters to consider 1 or more appointments, employments, dismissals, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thurman? Go ahead, Amanda.
Mrs. Klink,
Yes.
Mr. Mullet,
Yes.
Mr. Gertz,
Yes.
Mr. Kyle Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Steve Miller.
Yes. Thank you to all of you admin staff for continuing to find creative ways to teach our students in a very non-conventional way and learning as we go. It's appreciated.
Very good. Thanks, everybody. All right.